Los Angeles International Airport, LAX. The place is buzzing with travelers rushing to catch their flights. Among them stands a towering figure dressed in a black hoodie and sunglasses. Even in the crowd, he stands out. Flight attendants are guiding passengers onto the plane. One particular flight attendant, with her hair tied back and an expression of mild annoyance, glances at the hooded man for a moment before turning away indifferently. The man steps onto the plane. Behind him, a few passengers whisper, "Oh my God, is that LeBron James?" "Of course. Look at his ring, NBA championship ring." But the flight attendant shows no reaction. Instead, as the man moves toward his seat, she suddenly stops him. "Excuse me, sir, one moment. Are you a business class passenger?" LeBron pauses. Slowly, lowering his sunglasses, he responds, "Yeah, my seat is in business class." The flight attendant narrows her eyes. "Can you show me your ticket?" A few nearby passengers look on in shock. The NBA legend LeBron James, being questioned like this. Without hesitation, LeBron reaches into his pocket and hands over his ticket. The flight attendant examines it closely, as if she still isn't convinced. Meanwhile, even those who don't recognize LeBron can sense something unusual is happening. In the cockpit, a pilot glances over, watching the scene unfold. After a long pause, the flight attendant frowns and says, "All right, you may proceed to your seat, but if you have any extra baggage, please make sure it follows airline regulations." LeBron simply smiles. Then, without another word, he walks over to his seat and sits down. But there's a look in his eyes, something unreadable. Is this the end of it, or is the real story just beginning? LeBron settles into his business class seat, stretching his long legs. He puts on his headphones, trying to relax before takeoff. Passengers around him sneak glances, some whispering, others pretending not to notice the basketball legend sitting among them. The flight is about to depart when the same flight attendant walks down the aisle, checking passengers' seatbelts. As she reaches LeBron's row, she pauses. A slight smirk appears on her face. "Sir, could you remove your headphones? We're preparing for takeoff." LeBron, always respectful, nods and takes them off. But the moment he does, the flight attendant crosses her arms and says, "And please make sure your seat is in an upright position. This isn't your couch at home." A few passengers exchange glances. Some chuckle nervously, unsure if she's joking or being rude. LeBron, still calm, adjusts his seat and gives a polite nod. "No problem." But the flight attendant isn't done. She turns to the passenger next to him, a middle-aged man in a suit, and says loud enough for others to hear, "Some people think just because they're rich, they can do whatever they want on a plane." The man beside LeBron awkwardly shifts in his seat, looking away. A few murmurs ripple through the cabin. The disrespect in her tone is clear, and now more passengers are paying attention. LeBron stays silent. His expression doesn't change, but there's a sharpness in his eyes now. The flight attendant walks away, but not before rolling her eyes slightly. LeBron leans back, exhaling slowly. He's been through worse. He knows how to handle people like this, but what he doesn't know is that this was just the beginning. Because soon, this flight attendant would make a mistake she would never forget. The plane is now cruising smoothly at 35,000 feet. Most passengers have settled in, some watching movies, others reading or sleeping. LeBron, too, tries to relax, but there's an unmistakable tension in the air. The flight attendant, however, seems to be on a mission. She walks past LeBron's seat again, this time stopping to inspect his area. Her eyes scan the small bag he placed under the seat in front of him. "Sir," she says, her tone sharp, This bag should be in the overhead compartment. LeBron looks at her, confused. It fits perfectly under the seat. I've traveled like this countless times. The flight attendant sighs dramatically. Rules are rules. If everyone starts making their own rules, this plane will turn into a mess. LeBron takes a deep breath. He doesn't want to argue. Without a word, he reaches for his bag, preparing to place it overhead. But before he can get up, the passenger across the aisle, an older woman, speaks up. "Ma'am, his bag isn't blocking anything. I don't see the issue." The flight attendant stiffens, clearly not expecting to be challenged. She forces a tight-lipped smile. "Ma'am, I appreciate your concern, but I know what I'm doing." LeBron, sensing the growing tension, gently shakes his head and places the bag in the overhead bin. He's been in high-pressure situations his whole life. He knows how to pick his battles, but the passengers around him have started to notice. Whispers spread through the cabin. Why is she singling him out? She's got an attitude, doesn't she? Does she even know who he is? LeBron remains silent, his face unreadable. The flight attendant smirks slightly, as if satisfied that she won this round. But what she doesn't realize is that she's playing a dangerous game. Because LeBron may be patient, but he's not someone you can keep pushing forever. And soon, she was going to find that out the hard way. The tension in the cabin is undeniable now. A few passengers shoot annoyed glances at the flight attendant, whispering among themselves, but she doesn't seem to care. She walks away with an air of self-importance, convinced she has put LeBron in his place. LeBron, on the other hand, remains composed. He leans back in his seat, staring out the window at the endless sky. But behind those calm eyes, something shifts. A few minutes later, the flight attendant returns, pushing the beverage cart. As she stops near LeBron, she doesn't even look at him. Instead, she focuses on the passenger next to him. "Would you like something to drink?" she asks sweetly. The man next to LeBron orders a soda. The flight attendant hands it to him with a smile. Then, finally, she glances at LeBron, her expression neutral. "And you?" she asks flatly. LeBron smiles politely. "I'll take a water, please." But just as she reaches for the bottle, another flight attendant, a senior one, suddenly appears beside her. She places a gentle but firm hand on her shoulder. "I'll handle this," the senior attendant says with a professional smile. The younger flight attendant looks momentarily confused, but steps aside. The senior attendant picks up a bottle of water and hands it to LeBron herself. "It's an honor to have you on board, Mr. James," she says warmly. "Let me know if you need anything at all." The entire row goes silent. The younger flight attendant's face pales. She stiffens, realizing what just happened. She had spent the entire flight treating him like an ordinary passenger, because she didn't recognize him. And now, the look in her eyes says it all. She just made a huge mistake. LeBron gives the senior flight attendant a nod of appreciation. Then, he turns his gaze back to the younger one, his eyes unreadable. She swallows hard. The power dynamic has just shifted. And this was only the beginning. The younger flight attendant stands frozen, her face losing color as the realization sinks in. She had treated LeBron James, one of the most famous athletes in the world, as if he were just another troublesome passenger. And now she knows that everyone around her has noticed. Passengers whisper among themselves, some shaking their heads in disbelief. The man sitting next to LeBron leans slightly toward him. "I knew it was you." He chuckles. She really had no idea, did she? LeBron smirks slightly but says nothing. He's seen this kind of thing before. People who let their authority get to their heads, only to regret it later. The younger flight attendant, now visibly uncomfortable, forces a smile and clears her throat. Let me know if you need anything else, Mr. James. She stammers before quickly pushing the beverage cart away, but she isn't off the hook yet. A few moments later, the senior flight attendant, her superior, approaches her near the galley. Her tone is calm but firm. "We need to talk." The younger attendant's stomach drops. She follows hesitantly as they step to a quieter area of the plane. "Do you realize what you've done?" The senior attendant asks, lowering her voice. The younger one swallows hard. I was just following the rules." The senior attendant shakes her head. "No, you were making assumptions, and you disrespected a VIP passenger on a flight where professionalism is expected. Do you have any idea how bad this could get?" Meanwhile, back in his seat, LeBron remains calm, but the passengers around him are still buzzing. She's in trouble now. She acted so rude for no reason. Man, I would have called her out if I were him. The younger flight attendant glances nervously toward LeBron's seat. Her hands are clammy, because now it isn't just about her mistake. It's about what happens next. And she has no idea what's coming. The younger flight attendant stands in the galley, her hands clenched into fists. The senior attendant's words echo in her mind. "Do you have any idea how bad this could get?" She exhales sharply. This was supposed to be just another flight, but now she's at risk of getting reported, or worse. Determined to save face, she makes a quick decision. She needs to apologize. Taking a deep breath, she straightens her uniform and walks back toward business class. Her steps are hesitant, but she knows she has to do this. As she reaches LeBron's seat, she clears her throat. He looks up at her, expression unreadable. "Mr. James," she says carefully, her voice lower than before. "I just wanted to apologize if I came off as disrespectful earlier." There's a pause. A few passengers glance over, curious about how LeBron will react, and then, instead of responding with anger or sarcasm, LeBron does something completely unexpected. He kind of smiles. "No worries," he says simply. "We all make mistakes." The flight attendant blinks, clearly not expecting such an easy response. "Really? Just like that?" LeBron shrugs. "Yeah, I've had worse fouls called on me in the fourth quarter." A few passengers chuckle. The tension in the air suddenly shifts. The younger flight attendant, who had been expecting an uncomfortable confrontation, finds herself at a loss for words. But just when she thinks the situation is over, the stunt pilot's voice crackles through the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing an unexpected issue and will need to make an emergency landing. Please remain calm and follow all crew instructions." Gasps ripple through the cabin. LeBron sits up straighter. The flight attendant's face drains of color, because suddenly her personal mistake no longer matters. Now, everyone Huaschan is in trouble. A heavy silence falls over the cabin. Passengers exchange nervous glances as the captain's words sink in. Emergency landing. LeBron grips the armrest, his sharp instincts kicking in. He's faced pressure before, but this is different. This isn't a game. This is real. The younger flight attendant stiffens, her earlier embarrassment now completely overshadowed by fear. She quickly regains her composure, moving toward the front of the plane where the senior flight attendant is already coordinating with the crew. "What's happening?" A passenger asks, his voice shaky. The senior flight attendant picks up the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated and keep your seatbelts fastened. We are in communication with air traffic control and will update you shortly." But even as she speaks, Turbulence shakes the plane violently. Gasps and whispers fill the air. A child starts crying in the back. LeBron looks around, assessing the situation. The man next to him grips the armrest so tightly his knuckles turn white. "Everything's gonna be all right," LeBron says, his voice calm but firm. The younger flight attendant glances at him, surprised at how steady he is. Meanwhile, she can feel her own pulse racing. Then another sudden jolt. Stronger this time. A few overhead compartments pop open, and a suitcase tumbles out, landing with a loud thud in the aisle. A woman screams. Panic spreads. The flight attendants scramble to reassure the passengers, but the fear in their eyes is hard to miss. LeBron exhales slowly. This isn't just turbulence. Something is seriously wrong. The cabin is in chaos. Passengers are whispering, some gripping their seats in fear, others frantically looking around for answers. The turbulence has calmed slightly, but the uncertainty is worse than the shaking. LeBron remains steady, his mind working fast. He knows panic spreads faster than actual danger. Someone needs to take control. The younger flight attendant rushes down the aisle, trying to help a woman who is hyperventilating, but it's clear she's overwhelmed. This situation is beyond her training. That's when LeBron stands up. A few passengers look at him in surprise, but he speaks calmly, his voice carrying over the murmurs. "Listen up, everyone. I know this is scary, but panicking won't help us. We need to stay calm and follow instructions." The passengers quiet down slightly, his deep, reassuring voice cutting through the tension. Even the younger flight attendant pauses, looking at him with wide eyes. Then LeBron turns to her. "What's the protocol for this situation?" he asks. She stammers for a moment, then clears her throat. We're waiting for the captain's next instructions, but we need everyone seated and secure." LeBron nods. "All right, then let's make sure that happens." Without hesitation, he moves down the aisle, checking on passengers. "Buckle up, stay low if needed, and keep your head against the seat," he tells them. His presence alone seems to ease the fear in the cabin. Even the senior flight attendant watches him, impressed. He's not just a basketball legend, he's a natural leader. And just as order begins to settle in the cabin, the captain's voice crackles through the speakers again. "Brace for landing. We're making an emergency descent now." The fear spikes again, but this time, thanks to LeBron, no one is screaming. They're ready. The cabin is tense, every passenger bracing for impact. The captain's voice, calm but urgent, fills the air again. "Please prepare for emergency landing. Keep your seatbelts fastened and remain in your seat. This is a critical maneuver." The fear in the cabin is palpable, but LeBron remains calm, his leadership having already made a significant difference. Passengers seem steadier now, following his lead. But then, just as everyone is preparing for the worst, something strange happens. The lights flicker. Then they go out completely. A hushed silence falls over the plane. Some passengers gasp, a few hands shoot up to touch the windows, as if they expect something to be wrong outside. LeBron's instincts go on high alert. This isn't normal. The emergency lights kick in, casting an eerie red glow across the cabin. The senior flight attendant hurries back to the front, speaking in low tones with the captain. The younger flight attendant stands frozen in place, her face pale as she looks around. Then, out of nowhere, the plane jerks violently again. This time, much worse than before. A loud bang echoes from the cargo hold. It's so sudden, so unexpected, that the entire plane trembles. Passengers scream. "What was that?" Someone shouts. "Is it a bomb?" Another voice yells. LeBron's mind races. He turns to the crew. "We need to stay calm," he says, but his own voice now carries an edge of urgency. The plane shakes again, this time with a grinding sound from below, like something is tearing through the undercarriage. Everyone freezes. They've been preparing for a crash, but this feels like something else. The plane isn't just descending, it's being forced down. LeBron looks around, scanning the cabin. Something huge is about to happen, and he's not sure they're ready for it. The plane shakes violently again, throwing passengers into a frenzy. The overhead bins rattle, and the sound of the plane's undercarriage grinding sends a chilling wave of fear through the cabin. LeBron grips the seat in front of him, his jaw clenched, eyes scanning the chaos around him. The emergency lights cast long shadows across the cabin, making the already tense atmosphere feel suffocating. "We're going down!" A voice shouts from the back of the plane, panic rising. The younger flight attendant is visibly shaking, her hand gripping the nearest armrest. She tries to speak, but her words are lost to the howling wind outside the windows. The senior flight attendant rushes down the aisle, her voice sharp and commanding. "Stay in your seats. Keep your seatbelts on. We're in control." But her reassurances do little to calm the growing panic. The plane's descent grows steeper, and the sound of the engines roaring like a storm outside only intensifies. LeBron stands, defying the turbulence. "Everyone, listen," he calls out. His voice, strong and authoritative, cuts through the chaos. "You're going to be okay, trust me. Follow the crew's instructions and stay calm." His words, though simple, carry weight. The cabin quiets for a brief moment. Passengers stare at him, the tension in their faces slowly easing. LeBron doesn't sit back down. Instead, he moves to the aisle, checking on each row, ensuring everyone is secured, guiding those who are panicking. "Focus on your breathing," he tells one woman who is hyperventilating. "In through the nose, out through the mouth. You're fine." His steady leadership is a lifeline in the middle of the storm. The flight attendants begin to take cues from him, working with precision and authority. The younger attendant, though still shaken, starts helping with renewed focus, looking at LeBron for guidance. Suddenly, the plane jerks violently again, but this time there's no noise. The grinding sound stops, the descent slows, the engines quiet down. For a moment, everything goes eerily still. And then, the captain's voice comes through the intercom, calm and clear. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have stabilized. We are descending to a nearby airstrip for a precautionary landing. Stay in your seats and we'll be on the ground shortly." The relief in the cabin is immediate, but the fear hasn't fully lifted. Passengers exchange glances, whispering in disbelief. LeBron sits back down slowly, his hands still gripping the armrests. He exhales, his heart pounding in his chest. They're not out of danger yet, but they've made it this far. The plane is descending, but the air is thick with anticipation. The critical moment is here. Will they make it? The plane descends steadily now, and the atmosphere in the cabin is tense but filled with hope. Passengers glance out of the windows, seeing the faint outline of an airstrip below, a distant sign of safety. LeBron, though exhausted, remains alert, watching every movement. His earlier calm has settled the passengers, but the uncertainty still lingers. The sound of the engines, once deafening, now hums quietly as the plane edges closer to the ground. The senior flight attendant moves toward the front to communicate with the captain one last time, while the younger attendant finally seems to gather her composure. She looks around the cabin and catches LeBron's eye, silently offering a grateful nod. "Thank you," she murmurs. "I don't think we would have made it through this without you." LeBron simply nods in return, his focus still on the landing ahead. You did your job. We all did. The plane hits the runway with a heavy thud. The jolt sends a few passengers gasping, but the landing is smooth, controlled. The plane skids slightly as the tires make contact with the ground, but the runway is long enough for a safe stop. And then, as the aircraft finally comes to a halt, a collective sigh of relief fills the cabin. Passengers clap and cheer. Some even break into tears, overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the experience. The younger flight attendant, now much more composed, approaches LeBron with a respectful smile. "We've made it, Mr. James. She begins, but LeBron raises a hand. "You did fine. You kept them calm when it mattered. That's what counts." The emergency exits are opened, and passengers start filing out onto the tarmac. As they walk toward the safety vehicles, the flight attendants thank each one personally. LeBron stays back, taking a moment to watch the crew and the passengers, his eyes lingering on the younger flight attendant. There's a new sense of mutual respect between them now. As LeBron steps off the plane, the sun is beginning to rise in the distance. The adrenaline of the night is starting to fade, but he knows one thing. This flight will be one he'll never forget. And so, the crisis has passed, and the tension has lifted. But this unforgettable journey leaves behind more than just memories of a dangerous situation. It leaves a story of resilience, leadership, and the unspoken bonds that form in the face of true adversity. The plane's wheels have touched solid ground, and the chaos of the emergency is slowly fading into the background. The passengers are finally stepping off the aircraft, their faces filled with relief. The crew is thanking everyone for their calmness, and the younger flight attendant, now looking much steadier, is already starting to regain a sense of normalcy. LeBron, still processing the events of the night, takes one last look at the aircraft before walking toward the exit. He's done his part, helped everyone get through the danger, but there's something nagging at the back of his mind. Just as he's about to board the bus that will take them to the terminal, a sharp voice calls out to him from behind. "Mr. James, wait!" LeBron turns to see the younger flight attendant rushing toward him. Her face is flushed, and she's holding something in her hands. I just wanted to thank you again for everything," she says, breathless. "You were incredible back there. I don't think any of us would have made it through without your calm leadership." LeBron smiles modestly. "It's nothing. We were all in this together." But then, she hands him something, a small envelope, tightly sealed. LeBron raises an eyebrow. "What's this?" She hesitates, then speaks, her voice quieter now. "It's a thank you from the airline. You helped save the lives of everyone on board. And well, there's one more thing." Confused, LeBron tears open the envelope. Inside, there's a letter and a VIP flight pass. His eyes widen as he reads the note. "For your bravery, we are offering you a lifetime of free flights on our airline. Consider it a small token of our appreciation for everything you did." LeBron looks up at the flight attendant, surprised. "Wow, I wasn't expecting this," he admits, his voice softening. But just as he's about to say something more, another voice, this time much louder, interrupts. "Mr. James, what are you doing here?" LeBron turns to see an airport security officer approaching, a puzzled expression on his face. The flight attendant looks confused. "What do you mean?" "Mr. James is a guest here." The officer shakes his head. "No, you don't understand. This flight was just a decoy. The real flight was diverted. You're not supposed to be here." LeBron freezes. "What do you mean, decoy?" Suddenly, the air feels thick again, and a wave of unease hits him. The entire flight? A decoy? The officer's face hardens. We've been tracking the plane. It wasn't just a mechanical issue. Something else is going on. LeBron looks at the flight attendant, who's now wide-eyed and visibly shaken. She steps back slightly, unsure of what's happening. "What's going on here?" LeBron demands. But the officer doesn't answer. Instead, he turns to the flight crew, signaling for them to follow him. As LeBron's heart races, the realization sets in. The danger wasn't over. This was only the beginning of a much darker story. The airport terminal is eerily quiet as LeBron watches the security officer and flight crew disappear into a back room. The last few moments feel surreal. What started as an emergency flight has now spiraled into something much more mysterious, and LeBron knows it's far from over. His thoughts race as he reflects on everything that's happened. The emergency, the calmness in the face of chaos, the unexpected turn of events, and now this new, cryptic revelation. What's really going on? He wonders silently, his mind still trying to process everything. But then, something more unsettling creeps into his thoughts. Could this whole incident have been a setup, a distraction? What could they be hiding? The flight attendant, still shaken, stands by the door, staring at LeBron. She doesn't know the truth either, but it's clear that whatever happened was much bigger than just a mechanical failure. As LeBron watches the crew walk down the hallway, he feels a new weight on his shoulders. There's a part of him that knows he hasn't just been part of an emergency landing. He's been part of something darker, something much more mysterious. The truth is still out there, and now it's a story that needs to be uncovered. But for now, the immediate danger has passed. The plane is on the ground, and everyone is safe. But the questions remain. Stay alert, LeBron thinks as he looks out the window one last time. The world isn't always what it seems. Thank you for joining us on this journey. This story may have come to a close, but there are always more stories to share. The courage and resilience we saw today remind us that we all have the strength to face challenges head-on and emerge victorious. If you found this story inspiring, make sure to subscribe to Hope in Reality for more motivational tales that will uplift and empower you. Life is full of unexpected twists, but with the right mindset, we can overcome anything. A subscribe button flashes on screen. Hope in Reality. Subscribe now for more. Stay strong, stay motivated, and always remember, no matter how difficult the journey, there is hope in every reality.